Hey there, YouTube family. I'm Eileen Thompson, founder of Treasured Ministries, and welcome to our YouTube channel where we take 10 minutes to teach you timeless biblical truths that can heal soul hurts. I want to invite you to subscribe to our YouTube channel by clicking on the subscribe button below, and also please invite your friends if this teaching that I'm getting ready to talk about is something that you think might help them. Today, we're going to be continuing on with our discussion about codependency. Now, last week I introduced this topic to you, and it's one that I'm passionate about because for years I struggled with it. And what we talked about last week was why codependency is often camouflaged inside of the church, why we don't talk about it, why it's flying under the radar. And so if you want to watch that YouTube video, that is inside of the link or in the description below. So today what I want to talk about is the solution for God's solution for codependency. If you remember my video, one of the things that I talked about was that one of the reasons why we don't talk about it inside of the church is that we might feel like, because it's in a lot of self-help books, and certainly the word codependency is not in the Bible, that, well, we just don't need to be talking about it. But as I mentioned, that the word idolatry and fear of man, all those sorts of things are inside of the Bible. And so codependency, even though that is a secular term, the root of it is idolatry, which is sin. And so this is something that we need to confront. But in order to confront a problem that we have inside of humanity, we're going to need to find God's solution. So that's what I want to talk to you about today. What is God's solution for codependency? Now, to really begin to address that, I want to begin with the root of codependency and why often this happens inside of our life. Oftentimes, you and I walk through a situation. It could be a trauma, something very traumatic that happened in our life. It could be a situation in our upbringing where we quickly learn that people are more powerful. I'll give you some scenarios or we learn that the lie that people are more powerful. For example, if you grew up in a home and your father was an alcoholic, and so because of that, the world kind of revolved around your dad, keeping him happy, not upsetting him, that kind of thing. Then your experience, what your experience taught you, and what it taught you was a lie, was that people were powerful, right? Like everything needed to revolve around dad. We walk on eggshells around dad. Another more tragic experience in this is the experience of sexual abuse. When you walk through that, you experience just such horrific trauma, and you walk through that believing the lie that people are more powerful than God, right? Because if God allowed this to happen, right? If this happened in my life, then people must be more powerful than God. And it can also be more subtle. It could be that you grew up in a home where perhaps your mom was emotionally absent, and it wasn't even what she said, it was what she didn't say, that she just wasn't there for you. And whatever it was that you walked through, it left you with a void in your life that created this vacuum that exalted people as a primary source for you to get your needs met. And so really the root problem of codependency, and again, last week we defined that codependency, biblically speaking, is simply a lack of God dependency. And when people are elevated in our mind as we should fear them. They're more powerful than us, whatever it is, or our lives need to circle around them. And it could have been even not that it was done to you. It could have been that it was modeled for you. Perhaps it was that your mother consistently catered to her husband just in an unhealthy way. And so maybe it was modeled for you, but for whatever it was, there was a subconscious belief that rooted down deep inside of you, that people had more power and they had more power than God. Now, you may not have articulated it, but that lie was there. And that lie pushed you to center your life and get your needs met through people. And oftentimes the trauma that we walk through, or when our moms aren't there for, it makes us feel powerless. And so if the trauma lied to us and taught us that we were powerless, but that people are powerful and things that we should fear, we are going to spend our lives being externally referenced and trying to micromanage all the people around us. And or we might get into a situation where we're consistently rescuing people, because if I can rescue somebody, that person is dependent on me and I don't have to fear rejection. But the bottom line that I want you to see in this is that the root of the problem is that there's a belief, which is a lie, that people are here for me to get my needs met. And really, while people should love you, while people should encourage you, all those sorts of things, that the source for our validation, our worth, all of that has to come from God. And then people are here not to give us life. People are here for us to love. Because see, if I'm seeing people as my source, or if I'm seeing people to fill that void inside of my life that only God can fill, that's when there's a vacuum that's created. And we can open ourselves up to unhealthy situations. In fact, if you felt powerless in your life, you'll be very attracted to people that are quote unquote powerful by the world's standards. And that's why there's this attraction between the codependent and the narcissist. And so if that's the root of the problem, here's God's solution. God's solution at a base level is a revelation of his power, a revelation of his power. Now, God's power is different from worldly power. Worldly power is dependent on people, and it's very control based. It involves manipulating people and seeing people to get what we want. God's power is that inner strength that Ephesians talks about, that of a woman who can be led confidently by God no matter what she faces. All right, and so we're going to be unpacking this more on the weeks. I'm going to keep posting teachings about codependency, so you can just learn maybe one little truth each week that will help you to bring awareness to it. And I'm going to give you practical things to put into place in your life. But so that is, if the problem is that, the solution is a revelation of God's power. Now I'm going to turn to the book of Ephesians, and Ephesians talks a lot, a fair amount about God's all-surpassing power, about the power that is available to every believer. And see, when you feel powerless in your life, and circumstances and people can make us feel powerless, but God wants us to stand inside of his power, not align ourselves with other people that we think that we're powerful. God wants us to stand inside of his power. Now, if there were 2 verses in the Bible that I could say, memorize these verses for God's solution, it would be these 2 verses. In Ephesians, in the first chapter, starting in verse 19. Ready? I pray that you will understand the incredible greatness of God's power for us who believe him. This same power that raised Christ from the dead and seated him in the place of honor at God's right hand in the heavenly realms. Now he is far above any ruler or authority or power or leader or anything else, not only in this world, but in the world to come. So that is Ephesians 1, verses 19, 20, and 21. Verse 19, he's saying, I pray that you understand the power that is available to you through the Lord. All right. So he makes this, that it is God's mighty power. So that's the first thing he says. And then he makes this distinction that God, verse 21, is far above any ruler or authority or power or leader or anything else. Who was the leader? Whether it was a parent, leader in your home, maybe it was a coach at school. Who was the leader that hurt you? And when that hurt happened, there was a lie that formed in your head that said people are more powerful than God. You know what? We can walk through things that can really hurt in our life. We can walk through pain. And pain often teaches us, the enemy will take the pain in our life and he'll twist it to teach us lies. And one of the biggest lies he teaches us is that people are more powerful than God. And in these two verses, this is the reversal. In other words, I know that that person did hurt you and that hurt is real, but that person is not more powerful than God. Now you might be saying, but Eileen, it did happen to me. I mean, I walked through this and this abuse happened or whatever it was. Did you know that God is a redeemer and he wants to redeem what is lost? And one of the very first fundamental truths that you can begin on this road to healing is to say to yourself, God is more powerful than any person inside of my life, period. Now, if you go to our website, treasuredministries.com, we have a free download called Her Heart for His Glory. If you go to our website, you click on the resources button, it's a free download. But you get two printables, and it kind of takes you on a path. Like when I believe that God is all powerful and I give my heart to him, and then it goes down just sort of how that belief can trickle down in our life, really, so that we can walk under the blessings of God. And then on the flip side of that, there's another handout, or inside of that handout, there's a handout where it talks about how we get hurt and we determine that people are more powerful in our life, and then how that trickle down effect and how that affects our life, that makes us weary and worn out. We live in bitterness and anger. And so one of the things that you can do, the take-home assignment, is to download the Her Heart for His Glory sheets and just begin to look at them. It's a lot to take in, but it will show you how just that one belief about God and about people, and you might be saying to yourself, well, I don't really believe that. Look at the behaviors, right, that are on those sheets, because our behaviors will tell us what we believe. And if you can begin to rightly divide the truth and see God as all powerful and the strength that you need to stand in rather than the strength of people, it's going to begin to be a huge game changer. Because see, when we get hurt like that, a couple of things will happen. One, we'll say, well, I need to be more powerful, and we'll manipulate and try to control people, that kind of thing. Or two, we will feel powerless and we'll sign ourselves up to link ourselves with somebody that is quote unquote powerful by worldly measures. And a lot of times that's a narcissistic relationship, right? And it's easy to do because we can see people right? But God is asking us to live differently by seeing differently, by walking with our eyes of faith. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there for today. And again, I'm going to be coming on every week, and I teach about 10 or 15 minutes of timeless biblical truths that can heal soul hurts. So come back and join us every week. But I want you to also, please, we're a small growing ministry, and the best way that we can grow is by word of mouth. So if you know somebody that would benefit from this teaching, my prayer is, and I want to ask you to pass on this teaching to others. And again, don't forget to subscribe to our channel so that you can be notified when the next teaching is up. Inside of the description, I will give you a link to last week's teaching, as well as the Treasured Ministries website, where you can download that resource, Her Heart for His Glory, by going to our website and clicking on the resources button, and then you'll see a drop down that talks about Her Heart for His Glory. So again, the root of codependency, the problem is that we get our needs met by depending on people, a lack of God dependency. The solution, and again, if you could memorize 3 verses in the Bible, it would be Ephesians 1, 19, 20, and 21 that talk about this. When we flip that, the solution for codependency is to have a revelation of God's power. In our video next week, I'm going to be talking about how you can have more of that revelation inside of your life so that you can begin to see that solution become a reality inside of your walk. Thanks so much for joining in. Leave me any questions that you have, because I'd love to answer them. Bye-bye.